All right, we looked at some Trump stuff from the weekend. Let's now look at some Robert F. Kennedy Jr. material. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is challenging Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination. His support is coming overwhelmingly from right wingers, including MAGA types. He's also overwhelmingly hired right wing consultancies to help with his campaign, but at least nominally running as a Democrat is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Once again, this time during an interview with our friend to some degree. I appeared on his show not long ago, Patrick Bet-David, and his Valuetainment podcast, the PBD podcast. Here is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying there is no question that vaccines cause autism.
I don't think there's any scientific question that vaccines cause autism. If you actually read the science,
If you read the science, there is no question that vaccines cause autism. Here is the same Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying the same thing in other interviews. This is not something he has said only once.
The science is so overwhelming on the link between vaccines and autism. It needs no further research. The research is out there. The CDC's own research. The data that we now have that shows that the CDC knew from 1999, when they went out and researched themselves secretly, they hired a Belgian epidemiologist who ran a team of scientists that went into the Vaccine Safety Data Link, which is the biggest repository for vaccine and health information. It's all the data for the top 10 HMOs.
All right. So you can check out that entire interview. He says there is absolutely no question whatsoever. And then here is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about this with Joe Rogan.
But the CDC releases new data every year, and every year it gets worse. It goes from, it's now, I think, 1 in 22 boys.
Has the rate of vaccinations changed? Has the schedule changed?
The rates of vaccinations have gone up. And, the mercury has been removed from a lot of the vaccines, but there's aluminum in those vaccines, which, operates along the same biological pathways and does the same kind of damage. It's extremely neurotoxic. And then there's other things, lots of other toxics in the vaccines that, could be responsible. There's hundreds and hundreds of scientific studies that looks at it, but nobody ever reports them.
Okay. Sometimes a factual claim is made and it just hasn't been proven true, but it hasn't been disproven. With vaccines causing autism, there are really good studies showing the claim is not true. Now, to put together a sort of concise story of the background on this, the original claim about vaccines and autism goes back to a guy named Andrew Wakefield, who was a doctor at the time. And in 1998, he proposed the link between the MMR vaccine and autism. It turns out it was based on 11 or 12 children, poorly designed study, ethical violations, financial conflicts of interest that weren't disclosed. Paper was ultimately retracted. That still is used as the source link for many of these claims, even though the paper has been retracted. Andrew Wakefield has lost his medical license, et cetera. So that did not prove that vaccines cause autism, but it didn't disprove it. It just hurt that particular claim that they do. You then hear RFK Jr. and others talk about 100 studies link vaccines to autism. We have talked about that talking point before. The list of 100 studies was compiled by an anti-vaccine website. It's been widely debunked by experts. You need only look at each study one by one, and you will quickly see some of the studies aren't about vaccines or autism at all. Some of the studies have been retracted. Some have pretty bad methodological flaws. I've already discussed that in detail in another video. So they assert 100 studies prove it. They do not. Doesn't disprove it, though. It's just not proof. Then we start getting studies that actually point the other way, that do seem to disprove the claim. Numerous studies involving millions of kids showing no link between getting vaccinated and developing autism. 2014 meta-analysis of 10 different studies involving almost 1.3 million children finds no relationship between autism and vaccines, including MMR, including thimerosal, which is the element that for a while RFK Jr. was talking about. None of it. A Danish study with 6,500 kids finds no evidence that the MMR vaccine causes, triggers, or unleashes autism in susceptible children. That was the other idea. The vaccines wouldn't cause autism in any kid, but in susceptible kids it could. Danish study completely debunks that. Japanese study with more than 400 participants finds no association between MMR vaccine and the onset of autism. So then they will often go to, okay, it's some ingredients that cause autism, like thimerosal. Thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative used in some multi-dose vials of vaccines. It's been studied extensively and shown to be safe and not harmful to kids. There's a 2004 review by the Institute of Medicine, which concluded that the evidence favors rejecting the causal relationship between vaccines that contain thimerosal and autism. There have been almost a dozen further studies conducted which find no link between thimerosal-containing vaccines and autism. And by the way, the type of mercury used in vaccines, ethyl mercury, is different from the mercury that causes harm. Ethyl mercury is very quickly eliminated by the body, does not accumulate in the brain. Now, what about the sort of situational claim? Vaccine rates are up and autism rates are up. That might be something. Well, except the increased rate of autism diagnosis is not actually evidence that vaccines cause autism. We spoke with a doctor about this 2 weeks ago, expert in autism, who explained that better awareness and identification of autism, changes to diagnostic criteria, the older age of parents when they have kids may be a factor. It's still being studied. It's unclear. Those are the explanations for the growing rates of autism diagnosis. And by the way, there are lots of other correlations with autism diagnosis going up. Are you aware of the fact that if you chart organic food sales and autism diagnosis, it's like a mirror image? Are we to believe that organic food causes autism? We don't actually have any evidence for that. We just have this correlation. During the 80s and 90s, the amount of TV watched per day on average went up as autism rates increased. Should we be studying that? Bee populations are down dramatically in exact inverse relation with autism diagnosis rates going up. Should we be studying that? I mean, the answer to all these questions is maybe make a hypothesis and try to test it. But when it comes to the vaccines, it has been studied extensively. And yet Robert F. Kennedy Jr. continues to repeat this. I love my Helix sleep mattress. I've been sleeping on Helix mattresses for years now, which is why I asked them to be a sponsor. You actually take their famous sleep quiz, takes just a few minutes to answer questions about your sleep preferences, body type, sleep position, whether you have back pain, and Helix will match you with a mattress that's perfect for you, which is really unique and helpful because a lot of people don't know where to start when buying a mattress. I certainly didn't. Their newest collection of mattresses, called Helix Elite, come with a built-in Glaciotex layer to keep you cool at night, an extra layer of foam for pressure relief, and thousands of extra microcoils for best-in-class support and durability. All of their mattresses ship right to your door, totally free. They come with a 10 or 15-year warranty, and you get 100 nights to decide if you like it. My audience also gets a whopping 20% off all orders, plus 2 free pillows. Go to helixsleep.com/Pacman and enter code HelixPartner20 at checkout. The link is down below.